Hello and welcome back to the lecture on applied econometrics. We have completed module 1. Now we are going to enter into module 2. Now module 2 is going to be an exciting journey because in module 2 what you are going to do is we are actually going to build econometric models. So we have been talking about econometric models, but we really haven't built anything yet. What we have done so far in module 1, and let's all do a little bit of recap. We essentially learned different tools and techniques, and we have seen how we can actually sort of do statistical decision making. And we will see going forward in module 2, when we build these econometric models, these decision making processes and the tools that you have learned, they are going to be used extensively. So, it is very important that we have a firm grip on what you have learned so far. Now, when we talk about statistical model building or econometric model building, so what do we really do? Essentially what we do is we actually sort of build our models from data, okay. And what do you do with data? We try to see the relatedness among different variables, right. So, we have like independent variable, a bunch of like sort of we bunch of independent variable and a dependent variable and try to see the relationship among the dependent and independent variables. So, it basically explains some phenomena, okay, and this phenomena we actually get from say economics textbook or the journal papers in economics. For example, we can see that how mother's participation in labor force actually influences child's education, let us say. So, that could be an important economic question, and we sort of build a model around that. And how do we do that? Again, we basically get data and then we try to see how the variables are related, how we can actually explain that. Now, when I say this, one thing we need to remember, and that is this model building, this econometric model building, which we are going to cover in module 2, we still remain in the paradigm of correlational thinking. We are not yet there in the causal thinking part. So, we still think correlationally. So, basically we will derive our inferences are derived from the correlatedness among the variables. So, we will just try to see that in this module. Now, essentially in this module how we are actually sort of going to progress, we will there is a checklist, and in that checklist we will see how like we do a diagnosis of the models, okay. So, when we build a model, how we actually do is we essentially need to ensure certain things are taken care of, okay. And what the certain things are? We will see that there are assumptions. There are many assumptions, and we know that whenever we are going to build an econometric model or any model per se, we need to have some assumptions, because model is always representing the reality in abstract, right. And when the reality is represented in abstract, we have to have assumptions, right. We have to have assumptions, and as an econometrician, we need to know what these assumptions are, and when we have these assumptions, how they are limiting us, or so how they are limiting us, and that way we sort of get a sense of the models, okay. So, we know this models given these assumptions. So, what are the assumptions? Let us say we will talk about linearity in parameter, okay, just in the next few lectures we are going to see that. So, what it really mean and why really it matters, okay. Or for that matter, let us say we will talk about, there should not be any sort of pattern in the error term. Now, why there should not be any pattern in the error term, okay, and how do I really detect that, and if I can detect that, how do I really address that, all right. So, there could be a question, let us say we do not have a variable which we think is important, but we do not have data. For example, talent of an individual and his wage. So, we really do not have any data on talent. So, how do I really address this problem when I do not have a data of variable? We do not say that we can 100% address the problem, but there are ways around how we can actually look into it. Or there could be like variables, independent variables which are related to each other. Now, when the independent variables are related to each other, we ideally do not want them to be highly related when they are actually explaining a dependent variable. But when they are related, how do I actually look into that? How do I really solve that? Okay. So, these are the things that our assumptions, when we talk about the assumptions, we will actually address this kind of problems that we come across, and this diagnosis we need to do to see how robust our model is. So, we will learn that diagnosis part in this journey. Now, what are the terms that we can come across? We will come across terms like model specification, functional specification, we will talk about multicollinearity, we will talk about heteroscedasticity, autocorrelation, and so forth in this module. We are also going to talk in detail about the dummy variable. So, that is going to be very important when we talk about model building, and when we deal with the categorical data in statistics or in the kind of problem we address in the domain of economics, a lot of data are actually categorical data. Okay, so we'll just see that. We also said that we'll talk a little bit about the relatedness between machine learning and econometrics, and actually they're quite related. And we don't have enough literature right now that explains the relatedness between these two disciplines, and I personally would love to sort of explain that. But given this this limitation of the course, we will briefly touch upon that, and we will touch this topic in the context of when you explain least square method and stochastic gradient descent. Okay. So, we will see how these two disciplines can actually talk to each other. So, we will sort of touch upon that. Finally, we are going to follow Christopher Dougherty's textbook and Gujarati's textbook for this module. And just the last bit of advice when we do this module is that keep in mind the models. When we talk about the models, we always go back to the literature. So, always the models, the idea of a model comes from say existing literature or a phenomena that you have seen, right. Let us say just the fact that education and wage, we know that they are related, and there is a literature how education is actually help you to build the human capital, and that actually helps you to get higher wage. So, that way we will sort of always, whenever you build a model, it is not one stop process, it is a continuous process. We always having a conversation with the literature or existing the research that is being conducted. So, we always sort of look at our model in the context of what is being done or what is done already or what is being done right now. So, that way we sort of understand the econometric modeling part. Throughout this module, we are going to use small examples, and these examples will numerical examples. So, to explain the small concepts, we will be using small data sets and little bit of coding to actually explain these concepts. So, with this I sort of end this introduction to module 2 and looking forward to an exciting journey in module 2. Thank you.